Welcome to Sportpen.
Great to be here.
We're about to take a fascinating journey back in time today. We're revisiting a truly untouchable achievement in NFL history.
The 72 Miami Dolphins.
Exactly. Their perfect, undefeated season. But we want to do more than just, list the wins.
Right. Go deeper.
Yeah, dig into the alchemy of that year, the personalities, the pressures, those moments where, everything hung in the balance. That's what forged their legendary status.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What separates a great team from one that becomes, timeless sporting lore?
Absolutely. I mean, what the 72 Dolphins did, it's still a solitary peak in the Super Bowl era to go through an entire NFL season, playoffs included, without a single loss.
Little.
It takes exceptional talent, obviously, but also this almost unbreakable mental resolve. And let's be honest, probably a favorable bounce or two along the way, yeah.
Okay, so let's set the stage a bit. This kind of dominance, it doesn't just, appear out of nowhere. What was the story leading up to 72?
Well, a huge factor was Don Shula arriving. He brought in this culture of discipline, real expectation.
Right.
By 71, they were already really good. Won their division, fought through that marathon playoff game against the Chiefs.
Oh, I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah. But then came Super Bowl VI, the Cowboys. And it was a pretty decisive loss, 24-3.
Ouch.
Yeah. But, while nobody likes losing a Super Bowl, that loss seemed to ignite something. It really fueled them.
So it wasn't just a disappointment. It was actually motivational fuel.
Precisely. It was humbling, And apparently Shula used specific film from that game all through the offseason.
Really?
Yeah, relentlessly drilling the areas where they got exposed. It wasn't just let's win more. It was this meticulous dissection of failure to make sure it didn't happen again.
Wow.
And then you've got the defense, the famous no-name defense.
Right. Always heard that name.
Even back in 1970, with 4 rookies starting, they were already a top 5 unit in the league. Super stingy.
4 rookies. That's impressive.
Yeah. Safety Dick Anderson had, 8 interceptions that year? A real playmaker, even then.
Yeah.
By 72, they were just the undisputed best defense in the NFL. Allowed something like 12.2 points per game. 2 shutouts in the regular season.
Just suffocating.
And the funny thing is, this wasn't a defense stacked with household names or perennial Pro Bowlers right from the start.
It really highlights the power of coaching, doesn't it? And the scheme, making the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. Bill Arnsparger, the defensive coordinator, he was key.
Yeah.
Built this incredibly cohesive, opportunistic unit. Guys like the young Dick Anderson, the veteran Nick Borniconti, they were the anchors.
Discipline and toughness.
Totally. And Arnsparger was known for some innovative stuff, too, like zone blitzes that would confuse quarterbacks.
Interesting. And, okay, while their identity became that running game, offensively, they weren't exactly slouches either, were they?
Not at all. I mean, they had future Hall of Famers. Bob Greases at quarterback.
Right.
And the amazing Paul Warfield at wide receiver. Electric player.
Yeah, Warfield was something else.
And back in 70, Howard Schnellenberger was the OC. The offense was built around these Pro Bowl-level talents. So yeah, even before 72, the foundation was there. Strong nucleus, both sides of the ball.
Okay, so the stage is set. They're motivated. Then, week 5 of the 72 season, disaster strikes, potentially.
Yeah. Bob Grease goes down. Broken ankle against the Chargers.
Ugh. Losing your starting QB.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like it could be the end for any team with Super Bowl hopes.
It certainly could have been a huge setback. But what happened next is, honestly, one of the best stories of that whole perfect year.
The Earl Morrall story.
Exactly. The emergence of Earl Morrall.
And didn't they get him off waivers for basically nothing? Like $100?
It's the legend. $100. It's wild. Morrall, this, seasoned vet who'd been around the block.
I've seen it all.
Pretty much. He steps in and just guides the team to 9 straight wins. 9-0 as a starter.
Incredible. And he won Comeback Player of the Year, right?
He did. Teammates always talked about how unflappable he was, just a calming presence. They even called him Pearl.
Pearl. Why Pearl?
Well, partly his age, he was nearly 40, and just his, wisdom and experience from playing on multiple teams. Kind of like an old pearl of wisdom, I guess.
I love that. I heard he practically had a rocking chair in the locker room. That image of this cool, calm veteran.
It fits, right. And Shula had that great quote about moral success. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Good one.
Morrall had the experience, the temperament, and when the chance came, bam, he was ready. Even Grease admitted it later.
What did he say?
Basically, there would be no undefeated season without Earl Morrall. High praise.
Wow. It really shows the team's resilience, their depth, and maybe some smart planning by Shula to have a guy like Morrill there.
Absolutely. Shrewd leadership.
Okay, let's shift gears to that ground game. Because the running attack of the 72 Dolphins is almost as famous as the perfect season itself.
Oh, for sure. That three-headed monster, Larry Kazanka, Mercury Morris, Jim Keek, it was just relentless.
A force of nature.
Yeah, they didn't just run effectively. They steamrolled people, broke the NFL's single-season rushing record, a record that had stood since, 1936.
That's insane. And the really wild part is Kazanka and Morris both ran for over 1,000 yards.
Yeah. First time ever for teammates in NFL history. Kazanka, the power guy, 1,117 yards, 6 TDs.
Bruising runs.
Totally. And then the speedster, Mercury Morris, exactly 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. Just an amazing combo.
You can't have that kind of running game without...
The offensive line,
Yeah.
absolutely critical, anchored by the great Larry Little Hall of Fame guard.
Right. We always talk about the backs, but those guys up front, the unsung heroes.
Indisputably. Monty Clark, the O-line coach, had them working like a single unit. Their communication was supposed to be flawless, just honed through endless practice, film study.
Gotta be perfectly in sync.
And what's also pretty cool is the unselfishness, particularly with Kick and Morris. Both could have been the main guy on other teams, but they bought into their roles in that three-back system for the good of the team. Seems like there wasn't really jealousy there, just camaraderie.
That says so much about the team chemistry, the culture Shula built.
Okay.
So even with a dominant defense, killer run game, a perfect season has to have some close calls, right? Some heart stoppers.
Oh, definitely. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were a few games where the outcome really could have gone the other way.
Like what?
Week 6 against the Bills. That was apparently a real nail-biter. Came down to a narrow win. Mercury Morris had a couple of crucial touchdown runs.
Okay.
Then the playoffs. Divisional round against the Browns. They were actually trailing 14-13 late in the fourth quarter. Morrill was still in at QB.
Pressure situation.
Big time. Then Warfield makes this huge 35-yard catch.
Clutch.
Sets up Jim Kick for the game-winning touchdown run. Just moments left.
Whew. Those are the moments that define championship teams.
Exactly. And then AFC Championship game against the Steelers, a really tough team.
The steel curtain was starting to form then, right?
Yeah, they were tough. Miami was down 7-0, and Shula calls for a fake punt.
Gutsy.
Totally. Larry Seipel, the punter, takes off with it. Big gain. Completely flipped the momentum. Led to a Kazanka touchdown right after.
Wow. Did Shula just feel it, or?
He said later it was based on film study. They saw a tendency in the Steelers' punt return team and planned for it. Meticulous preparation again.
Amazing. Any other close shaves? Maybe a controversial call?
Well, there are some stories from players, kind of anecdotal, about one regular season game where they felt a crucial call went their way, maybe saving the streak. But, that's always debated.
Sure, hindsight and all that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was this perfect storm, really. Talent, coaching, preparation, maybe a little bit of good fortune mixed in.
That sums it up pretty well. Which brings us to Super Bowl 7. The final boss, all that perfection on the line. What was the vibe like?
It must have been intense.
Interestingly, reports say the atmosphere at the LA Coliseum was kind of subdued, maybe nerves. Anyway, the Dolphins jump out to a 14-0 lead, and for a while it looked like they might actually put a perfect exclamation point on it. A Super Bowl shutout.
Wouldn't that have been something?
It would have. But then, then came Garrow's gaffe.
Ah, yes. Garrow Yepremian, the kicker. The blocked field goal.
Right. Blocked kick, he scoops it up. And instead of just falling on it,
She tries to throw it.
tries to throw a pass. It gets batted up. He tries to bat it again. It ends up in the hands of Washington's Mike Bass, who runs it back for a touchdown.
Oh, my God. Just chaos. No shutout.
Nope. Put an end to that dream. Shula supposedly watched that play 100 times afterwards. He was not pleased.
I can only imagine.
But ultimately, the defense did its job. The no-name defense completely shut down Washington's offense otherwise.
So the defense saved the day, really.
Pretty much. Jake Scott, the safety, had a monster game, 2 interceptions. He was named Super Bowl MVP.
Right.
Final score, 14-7. Dolphins win the Super Bowl. They complete the perfect season, 17-0.
The only team ever. And Mercury Morris said something about them being underdogs, right? Even undefeated.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Undefeated all year, and they go into the Super Bowl as betting underdogs.
It's almost contradictory, isn't it? How does that happen?
Speaks to maybe some skepticism about their schedule or maybe how close some of those playoff games were. But, they proved everyone wrong.
They certainly did. So looking back now, there's this whole perfection paradox. Shula always insisted the goal was the Super Bowl win, not necessarily the perfect record itself.
Right. The perfection was almost a byproduct of that relentless focus on winning the next game and ultimately the championship.
His famous intensity, that almost irritated demeanor some players talked about, that had to be a huge factor.
No doubt. Kept everyone on edge, focused. Players like Kuchenberg and Langer even joked later about the pressure, maybe half wishing they'd lost a game just to relieve it.
I can kind of see that. The weight must have been immense.
And it's funny, in the years right after 72, the team was almost overlooked. Maybe they didn't have that flashy persona some other dynasties had.
It's hard to fathom now an undefeated Super Bowl champ being an afterthought.
It is, but perspectives change over time, right? Fast forward to 2013, President Obama invites the whole team to the White House. Finally, that big national recognition. And then in 2019, the NFL itself names them the #1 team of all time. So yeah, the appreciation grew immensely.
Especially now, looking at the modern NFL. Longer season, salary cap, so much media. It seems almost impossible now.
It really does. The late Joe Horrigan, the historian, even wondered if instant replay might have cost them the streak back then on some close call.
Interesting point. And Larry Kosanka, he's still the guardian of that record, isn't he? Fiercely protective.
Oh, absolutely. And that whole tradition the surviving members have.
The annual toast when the last undefeated team loses.
Yeah. Playfully putting the hex on them. They definitely remember the '07 Patriots coming close.
Oh, I bet they were sweating that one.
Collective sigh of relief when the Giants won that Super Bowl, for sure.
It all comes back to that team culture, doesn't it? And it's Shula's leadership, the attention to detail.
Foundational stuff.
Creating that unified environment, even tackling racial divides within the team, which was a bigger deal back then.
Absolutely. Manny Fernandez from the defense said something like, "Our worst players were better than some teams' best players. They had your back." Just total commitment.
And Kosanka talked about intelligence being key, right? Not just brawn.
Yeah, Shula valued smart players. And again, look at Kick and Morris.
Yeah.
Talented guys, no resentment, just doing their jobs for the team. That speaks volumes.
It really does. And now, so many years later, sadly, many players and coaches from that team have passed away. The reunions must feel even more special.
You have to think so. Mercury Morris mentioned being an $800 question on Jeopardy. It just shows how their fame endures.
They're still legends.
For Dolphins fans, yeah, they're absolute rock stars. Their
Yeah.
legacy is just unique.
It's truly a remarkable, unparalleled story in football history. As we wrap up this deep dive on the 72 Dolphins, it really makes you ponder, what are the essential ingredients for a true sports dynasty? Is it just about counting rings, or does achieving something so singular, so flawless, a perfect season, does that elevate a team, regardless of any asterisks people might try to put on it, to the absolute pinnacle in our collective sports memory?
That is the enduring question, isn't it? The 72 Dolphins, they offer this incredibly compelling, unique case study in athletic perfection. Their story just continues to fascinate decades later.
It really does. Well, thanks for listening to Sportpen.